My Rhinoceros started from a drawing. And most of my books start from drawings. This was one of those drawings that I wish this happened all the time. It was a picture of a little boy, and I drew a leash. He was holding a leash, and so often when I draw a picture, I'm just following where the line takes me. And I got to the end of the leash, and I thought, okay, what of course goes at the end of a leash? A dog. Really, what else? A dog. I don't think any other animal. What other animal goes at the end of a leash? And I thought, when I'm writing a book, I'm trying to think of something unusual. So I just spontaneously drew this big rhinoceros at the end of the leash. And then I started asking myself questions like, okay, what would a rhinoceros do? I mean, what kind of talent does a rhinoceros have? I mean, an elephant can stand on its head, it performs at circuses, and so forth, shoots water out of its trunk. What does a rhinoceros do? I've heard that they're not terribly smart, that they, just wander around and bang into trees and stuff. But I thought, well, they have that horn at the end of their nose, and maybe they might do something fun with their horn, not destructive, because this is, after all, a book for children. So I thought, what could he do with his horn? So I thought, wouldn't it be funny? And often when I'm writing a book, I'm trying to think of things that make me laugh myself, because I like to laugh when I'm reading a picture book. So I thought, wouldn't it be funny if a rhinoceros popped balloons with his horn? And I didn't even think of the poked holes as kites, but then I thought, well, what good would that be? How helpful would that be? It would be kind of useless. So I started the premise with a rhinoceros which could pop balloons and then poke, and then I figured out poking holes with kites. What else could you do? How would that be functional or helpful? And then it just sort of flowed. And I have in my notebook, I think this whole book was written in like 6 or 7 pages of my notebook. And I figured, okay, these robbers, they're escaping, and one's escaping in a balloon, a big hot air balloon, and the other's escaping in a hang glider kite. And it's perfect. But then, of course, the little added twist to it all was, in order for the rhinoceros to pop the balloon and poke a hole in a kite, he had to reach them, and that meant he had to fly. So that was that's what this makes this book for me so hilarious, because when the policeman comes out and says to the kid, "Hey kid, is this your rhinoceros?" The kid said, "Yes." "Well, you got a special one. He can pop balloons and poke holes in kites." And the kid's like, "Yeah, and by the way, did you notice what else he can do?" It has a lot of little unexpected things, which I think is partly what makes picture books so special. So it was one of those little doodles that I did in my sketchbook that started with just a simple picture of a boy with a leash and asking myself question. But really, the big question is, what if? Often that's for me the kind of the inspiration for a story. For how could I take something that's incredibly implausible, like impossible, that would never happen, that you could never imagine happen, and make it believable. When I write a book, I'm definitely have an innate sense that I'm writing for children, because I write lots of little things for myself in my notebooks that are not appropriate for kids, but that engage my mind and make me chuckle or make me think. So, but when I'm writing, I'm looking to write something for a child. There's an innate sense of like a kind of a vague idea of an age. A child who's going to find humor in my story, but at the same time, I'm also looking to entertain myself as well, because I'm going to be spending all these weeks and weeks and months sometimes working on a book, and I enjoy laughing and being engaged with the story just as much as I want my audience to. Humor is important, but I think also just making children think outside the box. And I mean, that's a cliche, but taking nonsense and making it almost believable. I don't know, just stretching their imaginations. I guess that's part of what inspires me to write for kids. It's funny, when I read this book to kids, I won't actually hold the book up and read it. I tell it while I'm drawing it. And it's lots of fun to draw as I'm telling it. And it's very dramatic because I'm moving around and drawing at the same time. And I'm adding so much to it. Like when I tell this story, the woman who comes to the rhinoceros expert, I love drawing a picture of her with lots of curly hair, and I draw her hair, and it gets curlier and curlier and curlier, and I tell the kids that I have a hard time. I really like drawing curly hair, and I really have a hard time stopping drawing curly hair until somebody really has to tell me to stop drawing curly hair, and I keep drawing the curly hair until suddenly they start yelling, "Stop! Stop! Stop!" And so I stop. But so the telling of this book is so much fun, and a lot of it has nothing to do with the story itself. My mom, when she read to me, she would add little things. She would stop the book and ask us questions. How do you think about that? What kind of animal would you get? She would engage us, not just reading the story. She emphasized words and would, if she missed a sentence or something, she wouldn't go back and start from the beginning. She would just keep plowing through, have fun with it. I guess what I appreciate about picture books is, again, back to where that interplay between the words and the pictures, where the kids are able to discover things that the words are not telling them. So they feel they're discovering things that their mom and dad are not telling them. That like there's a book that we have, the Life on Mars book, which is a boy who goes to Mars to look for life. And he's very confident, and he arrives on the planet, and he's just so confident, and he says, everybody thinks I'm crazy, but I'm convinced there's life on Mars. And sure enough, there's a creature who sees him and follows him and walks behind him, but he doesn't see it. He keeps walking that way, and the creature's walking right behind him, and he never looks behind himself. So when kids look at that book, I'm sure they're saying, just turn around, but they see the creature, but he doesn't see the creature. And he never sees the creature. He goes back to planet Earth. He does find life. It's not this, 20 foot tall Martian, but it's a beautiful flower. But again, it's just one of those experiences that I think young children can discover things in the pictures, and the words are not like beating them over the head saying, look at that, look at that. They're able to, there's that wonderful play between the text and the picture. The turn of a page in a picture book is a big deal. It's like it could be like a chapter in a chapter book. In My Rhinoceros, for example, when the little boy says pop to the rhinoceros, the big page turn where the rhinoceros leaps into the air is over here on the page turn. You would never want to have this picture of the rhinoceros jumping in the air on the right-hand page, because it would just give away your moment. It's funny, I was not exposed to the kind of picture books that I think are out there now. When I was a kid in the 50s and early 60s, there was Where the Wild Things Are. There was Dr. Seuss, but there was Beatrix Potter. I remember them. All those little books. They were lovely. Edward Lear was big as a nonsense book, partly because the limericks were. Actually, Edward Lear was a bit of an inspiration, because his limericks showed grown-ups doing goofy things to themselves. And as a child, thinking that, all these very serious grown-ups could be very silly. That was kind of liberating. It's like, wow. But today, I think, I mean, in the last 20 years, picture books, there's so much wonderful stuff. It's just exploded. I always try and keep it simple because, you know, kids, because my books, as I say, are generally 30, 40 pages. So if I can get children to write, like, put together a folded dummy, or whatever you want to call it, a little mock-up book that's maybe 6 pages, and they can engage me for 6 pages, and they can tell me a story that starts with which doesn't use old-fashioned, like Once Upon a Time, where we find ways to come up with really good, fun, exciting first lines. Little projects that are just enough to get somebody into a story. They don't have to finish the story, just enough to kind of set up a really interesting premise, but they don't have to solve it, because solving a story is, you know, that's a lot to ask for young kids. But and then we use examples of how you can incorporate your pictures with your text, because you know, with pictures, you know, your text can be very, you don't have to have many words at all. You can have, in fact, if anything, what I work with kids is I try and get rid of most of their words, because they're overwriting, you know. I want them to find ways to make the pictures do a lot of the heavy lifting.